Hey guys, welcome to the love of books, movies, and happiness. My name's April. Today we're continuing the All Souls series book review with the third book in the series, as originally it was a trilogy that just kind of morphed into a series as she went, which is the Book of Life. I did read this as an ebook, so I will just put a picture of the book somewhere at the beginning of this video so that you have an idea of what the cover looks like, as I think it is a very pretty cover, at least on the ebook version it is. For those of you who are not familiar with the All Souls series, maybe this is the first video you're finding of it, it started out as a trilogy with a discovery of witches, and it was also a 3-season TV show, about 2001, I believe, 2001, 2002, somewhere in there, which did a decent job of following the main parts of the books. Each season was based off of a different book, which impressed me because usually that just doesn't work out, but this time around it actually worked. So in the Discovery of Witches All Souls series, we've met Diana Bishop and we've met Matthew. Diana is a witch she's a natural born witch who turned her back on her powers at a very young age because she believed that it killed her parents. She was told at her parents' funeral that it was because they were experimenting with higher powers and higher magics that they were killed. So for the longest time, she turned her back on her abilities. And when she did try and do something, when her aunts tried to teach her anything, it just didn't work out. So she goes on and becomes a college professor who's in England, studying at the college there, at the All Souls College. And she's there because she's studying to do a paper and a presentation on alchemy and how so much of the ancient alchemy that people thought was magic was in fact just early versions of science. Well, she comes across a book that she needs. It's part of a set of books that are on different, treaties almost of, different things that you need to know on. Kind of gives the history of stuff. And this is the Asmold 782, I believe. I have that number correct. But it's one that's been missing for centuries and is believed to be a myth by some. Many people call it the Book of Life because it's supposed to have the origins of how all the various creatures, witches, vampires, wizards, demons, how they all began. So when she pulls it out, not realizing that she's done anything special, every creature in the area is immediately notified by its power, which is how she meets Matthew, who isn't just another professor of genetics, he's also a declarant and a vampire. Now, in this world, witches and vampires are not supposed to get together. There's a whole anti-interspecies relationship thing that's been around for a very long time. And she's not aware of this, but he is, because he's in his world. So the first book, which was A Discovery of Witches, followed them as they got to know each other rather quickly, mind you. It was a very fast-forming relationship. Within a week of finding the book and meeting each other, they were going on a date, and then things were happening and they just got thrown together. But the whole first book was essentially them trying to get the book back because she finished with it and put it back in the library, and now she can't get it back because it's disappeared again. But at the same time, her powers are starting to show up, so she has to deal with that. does. The title being A Discovery of Witches. Not only did Matthew find witches, she's finding her own abilities. Then we go to book 2, which was the Book of Shadows. And that is where they've decided that the only way they're going to be safe for her to learn her magic and to find the book and to get their relationship figured out is to time travel. So they do. They go back to his past, and the Elizabethan time period of like the 1500s, like 1580, 82, somewhere in there. So then that book essentially follows as she tries to adjust to a different time period and how women were looked at back then. He's dealing with his past and some things that he didn't expect to have to deal with. He thought they'd be there and back and done with it. And she's also trying to get her powers figured out, where she gets some answers. And she finds out that she's not just a witch, she's a weaver. So then, she can make new spells, and she can't really use anyone else's. She just has to learn how to make up her own spells to go with what the others can use, which is a good talent. It's just a very rare talent. The trouble has, of course, followed them. And then that book then ends with them coming back to this time, which is where book 3 has picked up. And mind you, if you've not read book 1 or book 2, I would stop now and just go find those and read them. Because book 3, there's a few things from book 3 I'm going to discuss that's a bit of a spoiler for the other 2 books. Just saying. You've been warned. Okay? So book 3, the Book of Life. Ever since first meeting and getting to know one another, Matthew and Dianna have not had a chance to really just have a moment to just be and get the relationship fully figured out. It's been nothing but drama from day one. And unfortunately for them, it continues. There's rules that she's supposed to follow, that he has to follow. There's a whole species congregational group that's like formed a little congress and set down rules that they're essentially breaking. And they continue to break, because in book 1, she marries him the vampire way. Book 2, when they travel back in time, they formalize it with an official church marriage. And by book 3, she's now a witch who's pregnant with a vampire's children. Something that most didn't think could happen, and others didn't want to happen. So in book 3, we are back in the current time. We have lost one member of the original group that ended up forming by the end of book 1. Someone very important to Dianna. And, there's some heartbreak over that. But at the same time, there's excitement. And then there's hope, because they're still trying to find the book in this century again. Book 2, they thought they'd found it, and then things happened, and they ended up not. So back to book 3, we're now faced with this thing of she's pregnant. The Congress is after them. She still believes that the book holds the answers to what they need. And it does, but now there's another enemy who has kind of stepped in and made himself known. Then we have the fact that due to his genetics, Matthew has a vampire disease that essentially makes him go into a rage, and he doesn't know where he is, he doesn't know what's happening, he can kill anyone and everyone around him. So, to be left in peace, the rest of the household has come up with the idea of, why not form our own branch of the family? Well, to do that, they have to get approval from the actual head of the family, and then they can do so once Congress approves it. But Matthew's brother isn't in any hurry to do that, because as far as he's concerned, Matthew's not fit to have his own family or be in charge. And Matthew's a little reluctant because he's not sure he wants that responsibility. But then some old faces from London back in time end up reappearing in the present. One of them, who is Jack, who is almost like a son, or is essentially an adopted son to them. And Matthew is ordered by his brother Baldwin to murder Jack. Well, now Matthew has a whole new reason to agree to form their own branch of the family, not controlled by Baldwin. But to do so, he's going to have to get any children made by him or his vampire children to all agree to obey him and follow him. So, even though Dianna is pregnant with twins and not really at a good time for him to disappear, it's what he does. So in book 3, we then have the questions that come up with this. Is he going to get all of the vampire children to agree? Will he and Jack get their blood rage under control? Will they form their own separate line of family away from Baldwin? Will the Congress ever leave them alone? Will Dianna forgive him for leaving? And do they get the book? Well, you'll have to read the book to find out on that one. Overall, I do give this book a 4.8 out of 5 stars. It continues to be a well-written, well-thought-out world. The characters are well-developed. The writing style is very smooth and easy to follow, and the story overall is quite engaging. So I definitely say that this is another very good book in the series. Character-wise, I like Dianna. I like the others. To me, though, Matthew as a character is very, I would say he's very childish, even though he's the oldest person in their relationship. He's very, no patience. So he's very impatient. There we go. So it's very much if something can't get done now, then it's not worth doing to him. Which, there's things that you can't be like that with. You know, there's stuff that's going to take time. He's got a very odd thought process. You know, he's kind of old-fashioned in the sense that he expects Dianna to follow his lead, but he has trouble recognizing that she could be right on some stuff. So then his attitude overall does cause a bit of an issue throughout the stories. I'm not saying he's a bad person or a bad vampire. He isn't. He's just, I think he's had too much handed to him on a silver platter. And he hasn't had enough of a struggle where he needs to develop his critical thinking skills. Dianna, on the other hand, has not had such an easy time, has been forced to think things out her whole life, and is the stronger one in the relationship. Which, you know, that's good. It's a nice change from the usual, the guy is the stronger and the girl's the more flighty attitude. No, it's nice. It's nice to see a change in that. It's just the way they interact throughout the book. There's times when you just want to reach through and just grab him by the neck and shake him a few times. At least for me. You know, I'm very much like, why can't you be like your cousin? Or be more like your friend who's a daemon? Why do you have to be so focused on everything else except what you need to focus on, essentially? You know, Dianna is a character. She's a strong woman who's dealing with a lot. You know, yeah, she ran away from her powers for the longest time, but she was a kid. And then there's other reasons involved in that she's now found out. But now that she knows that, you know, there's more to it than originally believed, and now she's forced to deal with her powers, she's doing so. Does she have moments of either being impatient or just not thinking? Yeah. But in the situations that she finds herself in, that's not entirely surprising. You know, the other characters are well thought out. I like the interaction between all of them. They work well together. And they make sense, which is nice. So overall, so far in the series, I'm highly enjoying it. I would say, you know, it took me a while to even find the series. I think I seen someone on Instagram mention it as how I even got into it to begin with. And it's one of those series I kind of wonder how I didn't find out about it when it first came out, you know? Which, this July is when the Blackbird and Oracle came out, which is the 5th book in the series. So I'm not super far behind. I have read that one, I just haven't done a review on it. The next book is Time's Covenant, I believe. I'll actually make an adjustment to that title if I need to in my description somewhere on what the actual title is. But that one, we kind of take a break from Dianna and Mathew, and we go over to Matthew's son Marcus and kind of see his story, which is a nice refresher. So far I'm enjoying the series and the books. The first 3 have been really good. I admit the way the 3rd one ended, I feel like she could have, with a slight tweak, just kept it at a trilogy and just ended it there, and it would have been fine. But it's almost as if towards the end of the 3rd one is when she suddenly decided there's more to the story than just this, and just made a couple quick adjustments so that it's not really a huge cliffhanger or anything like that either. It's very subtle. You just have a couple questions of, like, you know, what happens to some other characters. At least one of those questions we don't find out the answer to yet. And I don't know if we're going to. But, you know, it leaves you wanting more, but at the same time, it feels like she meant to stop at book 3. So if you're looking for a set of books to get into with high fantasy, set in a mix of modern and ancient times with vampires and witches and humans all together, I definitely recommend the All Souls series, at least the first 3 books. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I did take a short break from putting up videos just because we had a couple weeks where both of us in the household were sick. But I'm getting back to doing my regular reviews. Alright guys, until next time, keep reading.